Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lectionary and Youth Ministry. We are talking about this upcoming Sunday, November 9th, and it is the 22nd Sunday after Pentecost. Wow, we're almost to the end of the lectionary year. It's exciting. So we see Joshua and Psalm 78 and Thessalonians and Matthew. So we're going to jump right into Joshua 24, 1 through 3 and 14 through 25. Who wants to jump in?
I will jump in. Part of the text for Joshua, well, most of the text, is Joshua asking the question of, do you want to follow God or not? It seems pretty straightforward. And then when the people say, yeah, we want to follow this God, and then they go on to tell what God has done for them. And for me, especially after going through Exodus and Deuteronomy and all of those first 5 books of the Bible, it always seems like that the Israelites never remember what it is that God has done for them. So right here, it was just like, wow, they actually do remember. It's just hard to remember, I guess, when you get to those moments of distress. But the text in Joshua is really all about choosing God. So often, I think that when we talk about God and our relationship with God, it's like a given. Well, this is just something that you have. Whereas in this case, Joshua is asking the people, "Are you sure you want to choose this God?" And the people are like, "Yes, this is what we want to believe in. This is who we want to believe in." And he's like, "No, you don't understand. God is a jealous God. You can't serve God and something else." And so it just talks about how choosing God is not only choosing just a everyday decision like I'm going to go buy a new car. It's choosing God. It's making a covenant. And using the word covenant in there could actually be something worthwhile. And you could even, if you wanted to, do the covenant prayer from Wesley's covenant prayer that's in the hymnal. And then just one of the things that don't have anything to really do with it, I guess it does, but it talks about how this is a completion of the story of salvation. And if you read from 3a to 14, it's the story of salvation. It skips that because I think the point in this text is really to talk about choosing God and what it means to choose God. It's more than just a choice that you make on a whim. It's a covenant relationship. It's something that you're saying, I will willingly put forth the time and the effort into this relationship, and I will put everything that I have into this relationship. So that's my thought on it.
Nice. Daniel, did you have anything?
Here we go. I like what she
He did that to himself.
I like what she said about covenant relationship, and I'd be curious just to see like what my youth come up with as far as like different examples of different covenants or relationships and how they are similar or different than the ones that they're talking about in this passage. Because it's cool. It's basically like the opposite of a arranged marriage where they're like getting the option. It's like a parent coming up to them and saying, "Are you sure you want to marry this person?" And it's saying, "Yeah, like I'm genuinely gonna make that. Oh my goodness!
This person, I want to marry her.
You know that our dogs are."
Wait, aren't you already married?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On it.
I think that's a great way of looking at it, Daniel.
Sorry, Daniel.
Our dogs are twins, and they should hang out.
They really should.
Wait, what?
And they actually be twins. They look very similar.
Daniel's dog and our dog looks identical.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm following now. Go ahead.
It's on Instagram and or Facebook, and you'll find out.
I like in this one how he's pushing him, and like Chris, when you were pointing it out too, no, you can't just say, okay, yeah, we'll follow God because that's what you've been saying this whole time, and then you go and do something else. they're really pushing, like, he's like, no, like, you can't serve God. Like, he just kind of, like, flat out says, no. They're like, yeah, we want to serve God. He's like, no, you can't serve God. Like, he's, like, pushing them to, like, really commit to this thing. And I think that's really helpful because I think it's really easy for teenagers to just jump on whatever the latest thing is, only to move on to the next thing as soon as it comes out. Like a new one of these. It was a cell phone. But I think it's really helpful to be like, no, this is more than just saying, yeah, we want it. There's more to it than that. Like, you have to be all in.
And I think this could be even, I mean, I know people will preach with this text, of course, but adults have, I mean, the interesting part about this is we sit here and we talk about teenagers and how it's so easy to just jump on the latest bandwagon, but it's no different for adults. You know, we are teaching them how to respond, you know, and for adults, I mean, if you saw when the iPhone 6 came out, you know, I mean, everybody was like getting their phone and, you know, all of that, and it's exciting. It really is. But what are we teaching our children? Yep. What are we teaching those that are watching us? And with our relationship with God, with the covenant that we made, what are we teaching them in the covenant that they made?
Well, because as soon as the newest thing comes out, then everything you have that was perfectly fine a day ago is now worthless.
True.
And that's what we see the Israelites doing all in the Old Testament all the time. God, you're awesome. This is great. Oh, what? Wait, what? I'll be back.
It's kind of like squirrel.
Yeah. I think that could be a good example here.
Yeah.
Like, you guys have been following all the squirrels. God is not just another squirrel. That could be really interesting.
That would be. You could actually use that clip from Up.
Oh, yeah. Wait, that's a movie? It's a really good movie. So, random Oh, go, Daniel.
No, yeah, they're aware of it, too. They're aware of their own distractions and, like, the fact that they're end up going around in circles with a lot of things like that. So
how do we help walk alongside them towards something else as opposed to just continuing that circle? Because I feel like the Israelites knew that too, to an extent, that they were like, yeah, we know, we keep like going over and making like golden calves. Oops. But it's a really cool golden calf. Like this one has like more features than the other one. Things like that. So how do we help them move beyond just the circle that they're in?
Well, we lead communities that, at their best form, exist on a mission together, and so to be these missional communities, that it needs clear articulation, and that generally comes from the DNA as it's passed down through leadership. And so it's about helping them discern and articulate desires and needs and navigate as they intersect with real things like iPhone 6 comes out, and then we as leaders have to, instead of just throwing any sort of like leadership by the wayside, actually stop and say, what does this say to us, and what are we reacting to as a community?
I like that. So are you saying like I shouldn't have gone out and gotten the new iPhone?
No, it's all about opening up dialogue with that. That's an opportunity. I didn't get the new iPhone. I wasn't clued into what was going on with that as much as my kids were. But for you, going out and doing it, it's an opportunity. You take some pictures of you going through the process while you're there, and then turn around and say, this is testimonially, we like to come up with like anecdotal stories from our lives, but it's like, so this week I went and got the iPhone, and it's like, why don't you tell me what your thoughts are on that, and open up a dialogue about the experience.
How is your life better and made more complete with the iPhone 6 as opposed to the iPhone 5S?
Well, hopefully it will work better. I'm just saying.
It's all about dead space.
Do what?
I don't know. The irony that he was talking about issues with the phone and his mic went out is hilarious. So, Chrislyn, I think you're missing the point we're making here. Let's move on to Psalm 78. What do you guys think about there? All right, I'll go first. The first verse always makes me think of the I guess it was a Shakespeare, like the lend me your ears. I feel like that's like straight up there, like give ear, O my people, to my teaching, incline your ears to the words of my mouth. Like you could basically hear the same speech opening, which always makes me think of the Robin Hood Men in Tights version of that, when he says lend me your ears and they literally take off their ears and throw it at him.
But you know what? It might be a really good conversation starter
Oh yeah, definitely.
to watch that clip and be like, this is funny, but this is really how this verse starts.
No, it really is, yeah. And so you could do that, or you could come out in your like worst Shakespeare outfit, holding a little skull, and like
The worst British accent you can muster.
oh, the worse the better. It would
Yeah.
be great.
Verse 65 speaks to me.
Say that again.
That verse 65 speaks to me. The Lord awoke as from sleep like a warrior shouting.
65.
What are you reading?
Shouting because of wine.
Verse 65.
Then the Lord awoke as from a sleep, like a warrior shouting because of wine. Is that right?
Yeah.
I feel good about that. I don't think that's in our passage though.
Is it not?
No, it's not. It's 1 through 7.
Are you serious? No, I do it all. I don't mess around.
Can you imagine having to read all of that in like worship?
Yeah, that's what we do.
To read the entire psalm?
No, we don't read this. Our choir sings it in like chant style.
What if you read Psalm 119 like in your like?
I'm sure. No, they don't mess around. They sing every psalm, so it gets sung at some point.
That is awesome.
The whole Psalm 119?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they.
100 some odd verses.
It's the longest chapter in the Bible.
It's true.
Maybe they break it up into different days depending on how the lectionary works out. But
I don't even know if the lectionary touches 119. Kind of feel like they were all like, no,
I think they should.
not worth it.
I bet we do it. I'll ask. That's a good question.
That's right. See if you can figure that out. It'd be a really long song. All right. Does anybody have anything else interesting about the verses 1 through 7?
I want to read to you, like it's a sentence or two, but it's in talking about Psalm 78. It reminded me a lot of the verses in Joshua, to be quite honest. Just it says, which he commanded our ancestors to teach their children that the next generation might know them, all that. But this particular, wherever I got this commentary from, it said verses 1 through 4 underscore how the past is a parable filled with dark sayings. The mystery of history for the psalmist is the fact that Israel constantly rejected God, even when salvation was crystal clear. The psalmist tries to provide a perspective on this seemingly paradoxical situation by reflecting on the past. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, and that definitely ties back into Joshua because they're like leading up the whole God story up to that point anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's exactly what's happening here with the psalm too.
Yeah.
I like that the psalm points out how we need to have intentionality about sharing these stories with the next generations.
That's the point of the psalm.
Right. Well, that's why they're put to song, is so that the younger generations can pick them up quicker. Especially Psalm 119. Daniel,
go ahead.
No, you're good. I was going to say, Daniel, do you have an answer on if there's a psalm for 119? A whole song?
Yeah. have to consult.
Chrislyn, did you have something?
Oh, I was just going to say, it's interesting. This is kind of off topic a little bit, but it's interesting how we're sitting here talking about Psalms, and we talk about how they're put into these songs so that you can pass them down from generation to generation to generation. And our hymns that we sing today typically came from, back in the 1700s when they were written. They were written to bar songs, tunes that you would hear in a bar. And it's interesting to think about the fact that they were written in a time and used in that same format so that people could understand them. It wasn't that the Bible was necessarily going to them, it was that they were coming to the Bible. They were bringing what they had to offer to the Word through hymns and whatnot. I don't know. I find that interesting, especially in today's culture where, even just starting to relate to the world around us, our culture, people automatically begin to, say, you shouldn't be doing that. There should be a distance between spirituality and culture.
Right. Well, and that's even where stained glass came from, is it was to tell the story to people who couldn't even read, which is always interesting too. But yeah, you're right. It seems like nowadays our goal is to separate ourselves as far away from the actual culture as possible, which is why churches seemingly no longer relate to their communities, which is sad.
Which is why we're starting to exist less and less and less.
Yep.
Sorry, that totally took us kind of off topic, but I just thought I'd say it.
Oh, it's okay. Daniel, you have a stern look. Do you have any thoughts?
It seems like taking these stories to the next generation, that's like very distinctly our job, but I think that you also just touched on something where in youth ministry, being able to digest and relate the culture along with the truths of our faith is a big part of our job as well. As leadership of an up-and-coming generation, it's important to be able to discern like the local language and be able to translate biblical truth in the midst of all that. And yeah, so.
No, agreed. Definitely. Well, are we ready to move on to 1 Thessalonians? Daniel, it's chapter 4, 13 through 18. It's not the whole chapter. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Do the whole thing.
Who wants to take a crack at this one? Yeah, it's a good thing we're Skyping. Or G-chatting. Skyping.
Hang on, I gotta get there.
It's good for a follow-up on All Saints and All Souls days. Y'all celebrate that? Is that a thing?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We actually we lit a candle for each person who passed in our congregation. And then we had the 2 weeks prior to, we had people sign names on a tablecloth of people who have or are saints in their lives. And so we put the candles on that tablecloth.
Oh, now that's cool.
Is that the congregation or just the youth?
Whole congregation.
Oh, I love that. Can I steal that?
No. Yes, of course you can.
Oh,
So yeah, we just had a white tablecloth and then had Sharpies out and just encouraged people to write the names of people who either currently are saints in their lives or who have been saints in their lives. And then we had a whole tablecloth collaged with names, and then that was thrown on the altar that held the candles. It turned out really cool.
That's really cool.
And then the one other thing we did different this year, which I thought was really cool, is we had an extra candle. And we said we light this one for all those in our hearts that we have lost, that were not necessarily members of the church, but are still very much saints in our hearts. And so then we lit an extra one.
That's cool.
Good.
We lit a candle for each person that we had lost in the congregation.
Yeah.
But then we had a table full of votive candles, and during communion they could come and light a candle for someone that they had lost.
Nice. Like that. Daniel, how do you guys do it?
Well, we do a very solemn reading. I mean, there's special prayers that are done, and then there's a very solemn reading of all the names of members that have passed in the past year. And we also had a father of two of our younger girls pass away just the week prior, and it was tragic. And the funeral was on Wednesday, and it's been a really intense time. But it's something where over the past week, a lot of the families have come out and really gloriously supported that family. And I think that it's like the encouragement to one another at the end of this passage really lived out by those, and it really comes from the hope that you see all throughout this reading. I'm definitely going to use it to teach on. We're going to follow some of that encouragement, writing some of the girls' letters, but I wonder, looking way in the future, if there's ways that we can help encourage people that may see like All Saints as just sort of a tragic reminder, but instead like try to honor them and honor the people that are closest to those people that have recently left us, in a way that can be encouraging. Like writing letters of love and encouragement, or some sort of act of kindness. But it seems like honoring them through loving the people that were closest to them is a real powerful way to communicate something like this passage.
Definitely, I agree. Yeah, and it really does tie in well. Totally see that. Oh, one other thing we do is when we read the name of the person who has passed, someone rings a bell.
Yeah.
And then we actually allow, if someone is there representing them or close to the person that passed, they get to come and light the candle, which is kind of cool too.
That's a really, it's a good way to honor them and have them be able to serve and all that in the service.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else in Thessalonian? Always a fun book to say.
Matthew.
Let's move on to Matthew 25, 1 through 13. The Bridesmaids.
We could watch Bridesmaids.
You could. I think that would be a great call.
Or Wedding Crashers,
Or Wedding Crashers, yeah. Either one of those, super appropriate, and I think really just kind of brings it home.
Yeah, totally appropriate.
Oh my gosh. What do you guys think?
Had to say it.
It's an interesting passage for sure.
This is a good one just to throw out there and be like, all right, Lectio Divina, what's sticking out to you? Like, what are your interpretations? What's God really saying to you through this passage?
Yeah.
I bet that would be interesting.
Yeah, like what is happening? Especially out of any sort of context. Just
yeah. That would be interesting. And then you can almost ask them, like, do you feel like you're one who is wise and has prepared with oil or not? Or, like, how full would your oil lamp be? Could be something interesting.
Well, and what does it mean?
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty basic question. It looks like you should know what it means, but what does it mean to you?
Yeah. The question that I threw out to our youth leadership team that made them just all go, was, so the whole parable seems like you kind of need to, like, be ready. So what does that mean to be ready? And then they, like, kept redefining just the word ready. I was like, no. As faithful people, what does it mean to be ready? And there was just silence. And I was like, okay, so we need to work on that, because what are we doing if we have no idea what we're even A, preparing for, or B, how we're preparing? Like, what? It's kind of a problem. So,
Kind of.
I thought that was interesting.
Incredibly frustrating for people that are sort of passerbys, you know, because you like show up to a meeting or something and you're just checking things out, and you're like, what are we even doing? And you walk away being like, I don't know. I guess I'm never going back to that again.
You know, I bet there's a lot of church council meetings that happens.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we do anything in church council.
I have
Nothing.
one tonight. I have church conference tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because Max is your DSO, right? Yeah, so you're good. I think it's interesting for sure. Our pastor is going to point out, I can't remember who it was, but he was reading somebody who writes on different passages and things like that, and I can't remember the author. But they said their take on it, it's not even necessarily us being prepared, but it's the fact that we just need to be present to the party that we've been invited to. Because all the bridesmaids have been invited, but the 5 that aren't let in because they weren't present when the party started.
Ooh, so it wasn't necessarily about being prepared. It was about being present.
Because perhaps they could have been let in just by being there, even if they didn't have the oil.
Because everybody else still had oil.
Mm-hmm. And maybe God doesn't even care about that.
Huh.
It was just an interesting, I've never thought of it that way.
I like that.
Because the thing that I love about that is it takes a lot of it off of us, which I think is kind of how God works. But we keep missing the point because we think it's about us and stuff we have to do and earning our way and all this stuff. So perhaps in the end, maybe it's not at all.
You know the text. I don't remember where it's at, but hang on. I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head. It's like, you are the potter, I am the clay. I was listening to a sermon that was done earlier this year. I can't remember. I think it was Thad Austin who was doing the sermon. And he had said, you know, if you watch a potter work the clay, all the clay is doing is staying on the wheel. And when you said that, that's what I thought of.
Mm-hmm.
All that we do is stay on the wheel. All that we have to do is be present and allow God to move in our lives.
Yep.
So is that what it's saying here, or is it necessarily more about being prepared? That's a really good question.
I don't know. But you could push both of those.
Yeah.
I have one of our youth is actually teaching this one, which is going to be interesting. And she came up with the visual of a flashlight. And so the whole time she's talking, she's going to be holding a flashlight. And at the end, she's going to be like, all right, guys, what am I holding? They're going to be like, it's a flashlight. And she'll be like, well, what does a flashlight do? Like, shines light. And she's like, oh, okay. So she presses the button and, it doesn't do anything. She's like, so is this still a flashlight if it doesn't shine light? And, just kind of pointing out, without being connected to the power source, it's not actually anything. And so there's that, really connects back to what you were saying with the clay, you got to be on the wheel. And then you can actually start to shine light. That type thing. So it's interesting. I'm excited. I thought that was a good idea. So,
That's a great idea.
yeah, she's in 8th grade. I was like, nice. So, yeah, I'm excited. But yeah,
It's
so I thought that was a
amazing.
cool way of looking at it too.
Do what?
I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it too.
Yeah. It's amazing what teenagers can come up with.
Yep. Definitely. But I liked her idea that it still looks like a flashlight. We may appear to be Christians, but if we're missing the whole point altogether, we're not doing the actual thing we're supposed to be doing, which is shining light. I was like, whoa. Which ties perfectly back to oil lamps, which shine light. So was like, nicely done. And then I sat down and said, the student has become the teacher.
Don't you love it when that happens?
I do. It's so much fun. So, anything else? How do we feel about the bridesmaids being left out and told that they're not even known? Does that bother anybody else?
Yeah, too many.
What was Daniel saying?
Said there were too many bridesmaids. I just had a wedding. That's just too many.
Well, I do agree with that.
I think this would be a great way of like cutting down your list of people who are in your wedding.
I can only have 5 because God only lets 5 in.
You know, like I'm picturing Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, Ninja Warrior would be a great way to narrow it down.
That's basically what's happening.
Yeah.
Modern interpretation of oil lamps.
Go and get your oil and be prepared. And only 5 have made it to the next round.
You two are ridiculous.
But seriously, how does it feel for God, who says, I know everything about you and every hair on your head, to say, I don't know you? Like, is that weird?
I struggle with that.
Is that hard to deal with?
Yeah.
I know our teens would struggle with that because most of them want everybody there, and just some are okay with just everybody's gonna be there, except for Hitler. For some reason, kids are like, Hitler's definitely not there, but everybody else is. And it's like, what if Hitler is there when you get there? They're like, then I won't stay. And I was like, okay, really?
Picking on Adolf.
It's just, yeah. Because I talk a lot with our kids, and I was like, God invites everybody to the party, but it seems like those that don't come are the ones that have chosen not to be there. But in this passage, it seems like they actually did try to be there, they just weren't there at the right time. So I don't know what that is.
I don't think it's necessarily about missing the boat. I think it just puts emphasis on the importance of your presence, because truth is, at the party they're missed. You don't just have a wedding and then just be like, oh well, it's like we didn't really even want that many in the first place. It's like those people are missed at some point, and they serve a purpose. They have a role. It's like they're not just like random people. They have like an actual purpose in the context of the entire wedding, And so I'd say that, because they didn't make it, there's consequences not just for them,
Yeah. It's interesting.
So what was their purpose?
As bridesmaids. I don't know what ancient bridesmaids did, but mine just kind of sat around in dresses.
No. That's not what I meant. You talk about each one having a purpose. There's a reason that they're a part of it. They're an important part of being your friend or being family or whatever. So what is the purpose of the 5 that were missing? The 5 that were there, they got in, but what is the purpose of the 5 that were missing? Now, I don't think this text is all about who gets in and who doesn't. I could be wrong, but
sure sounds like it is.
Well, I mean, it could, depending on what way you're looking at it. It definitely could. But I mean, if we're talking about being more present, but okay, I guess the way I'm looking at it is I'm not thinking in the terms of you're going to heaven or you're not. Does that make sense? Though a lot of people would look at this text and think of it that way, but in the text, in the way that we've been talking about it in the past 15 minutes or so, we haven't necessarily been talking about that. We've just been talking about being present or being prepared and what we're being prepared for and what we're being present for. I'm just wondering, what is the purpose of those 5 that quote unquote missed the boat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In the context of the story, I think it's to emphasize the importance of them being there for the person that chose them. Kind of like if my brother is in the hospital, like instead of a celebration, something tragic, if my brother's in the hospital, I am like I have a role as my brother's brother and thus I need to be there and be present in for his needs, and healing, rather than his needs and celebration. Just like if my brother were getting married, I should probably be there because I have a role as chosen as a brother. Maybe I'm a best man in a guy's wedding in the spring. I better show up because he chose me. Does that make sense? And I'm chosen for a specific role, and it's nice, it's convenient that I know exactly what that role is, but it's important that I be there, not just for me, or not just for the sake of the wedding, but for the sake of not just the groom but the bride. There's like implications to the relationship, and I think it talks about community in that like there are implications to our relationship with others and with God, and it's important for us to show up. Not to necessarily be prepared, like what you're talking about, but but there's something to that.
The other thing I struggle with is like, say one of the ones who was prepared gave some of her oil to the other 5, and then she went and got oil. Would she be out and everybody else would be in?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. Because you would think that would be a great act of serving. But I don't know.
But that's not what the parable says.
I know. No, it's not what it says. I just like imagining outside of parables. They're made up anyway.
Well, I realize that. But I mean, if you want to get to what the parable was actually about, how can you step outside of those confines? Does that make sense?
It does.
I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I think it's great to think in that term. But if you're going to think of a parable, don't you need to take the parable as it is to try to see what it means, rather than adding what you want to add to it?
I'm just wondering. I'm not adding to it. I'm just curious.
I mean, it's a good question.
I have no idea. But yeah, it's interesting. Is it about being prepared or being present?
Or is it about getting left out? Or missing the boat?
Left behind.
Left behind. I follow you there.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that movie flopped.
It's bad.
Did you watch it?
I didn't see it. It's just I heard a lot of commentary about it.
Yeah.
It was not well received.
Was it the one with Nicolas Cage?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
It seems that the one that Kirk Cameron did actually was better produced than the one Nicolas Cage did, which is sad, because the one that Kirk Cameron did was also not good.
Bad theology makes bad movies.
True story. Guys, this has been awesome. We're gonna head out. We'll see you next week. Peace.